get this country and everybody in it back up on our feet, moving forward together. Because I want to be a president for all Americans. Democrats, Republicans, independents, not just the people who support me, everybody in this country.
When the people of this country step onto the voting booth tomorrow, there is one fundamental question for you to consider. Do you want America to be ruled by the corrupt political class? Or do you want America to be ruled again by the people?
Good afternoon and welcome to this special election broadcast as polls open across the United States. I'm Elon Aslan-Levy and we're live from Jerusalem. The most divisive and dramatic election campaign in American history is finally drawing to a close. Today, millions of Americans will head to the polls to elect their country's 45th president, alongside 34 of 100 senators and all 435 seats in the House of Representatives. Our political correspondent, Kalev Ben-David, joins me now. Kalev?
Thanks, Elon. Voting is already underway in most East Coast and Midwest states in the U.S., with media there reporting long lines at the polling stations. Both Hillary Clinton and Donald Trump returned overnight to their home base of New York City, where one of them will later be celebrating victory and the other will make a concession speech, or maybe not, if the results are contested. Earlier, I filed this report on the final hours of the 2016 presidential campaign. The dirtiest and perhaps strangest U.S. presidential election campaign ever reaches its climax today, as Americans go to the polls to decide between Democrat Hillary Clinton and Republican Donald Trump, who, according to surveys, are the two least popular candidates in U.S. political history. Most final polls show Clinton leading the popular vote by anywhere between 2 to 6%. With a similar narrow advantage in the Electoral College. Voter turnout will be crucial, with white men being key for Trump and African Americans and Latino voters crucial for Clinton, especially in battleground states such as Nevada.
We need to turn out more voters, but here's the key. We still have over 100,000 Latinos that haven't voted, Over 100,000 have, but we still have another 100,000 to bank on. And going into the election, we want to make sure that the Latino vote turns out in even greater numbers in 2012. And to do that, we're going to continue the massive get out the vote operation.
Both Clinton and Trump wound up their campaigns in key battleground states yesterday. The Democratic candidate continued to call on celebrity supporters to draw in the crowds, including pop star Bruce Springsteen at a rally in Philadelphia.
The choice tomorrow couldn't be any clearer. Hillary's candidacy is based on intelligence, experience, preparation, and on an actual vision of an America where everyone counts.
Trump headed to New Hampshire, whose votes he will likely need to score an upset victory. But the earliest returns there were not promising for Republicans. At a midnight vote in the tiny village of Dixville Notch, Clinton gained 4 votes, Trump won 2 votes, and Libertarian candidate Gary Johnson received 2 votes. If the rest of the U.S. follows the lead of Dixville Notch and goes according to the polls, it will be a long day for Donald Trump and a happy one for Hillary Clinton.
And now, live from New York, we're joined by Israel Television's Natan Gutman. Natan, good morning. What is the mood like on the streets of the Big Apple?
Good evening to you.
What is the mood like on the streets of the Big Apple right now?
We're here at a polling station in Midtown Manhattan, and as you can see, the lines are already around the block. And this really reflects the situation in most polling stations around the country. There are reports of long lines of significant voter turnout, and that is good news for Hillary Clinton. Democrats traditionally benefit from a higher turnout, and what we're seeing, at least here anecdotally, is a lot of voters, and all of them, at least the ones we had a chance to speak to before, all of them cast their vote for Hillary Clinton.
Nathan, 2016 has been the year of big surprises in politics across the world. Now, nearly every forecast has Clinton winning, but what will it take for those predictions to be wrong?
Well, that's exactly what Donald Trump is counting on. He said that he will deliver such a surprise. It will be a Brexit plus, plus, plus. What will it take for Trump to actually deliver this kind of a Brexit plus, plus, plus? Well, he will have to win all of the swing states, all the states that are currently a toss-up or that lean slightly to either side. And in addition, he will have to flip at least one safe Democratic state. And that's why we've seen in the past 24, 48 hours, this blitz on behalf of Donald Trump and his campaign, focusing on states such as Michigan, Wisconsin, hoping that that can somehow change the vote. Donald Trump, as we know, is looking for his demographic. These are white males. Their education is high school education and lower. Income is mid-income and lower. These are Trump's base, and he's hoping that if he can flip these types of votes in a state like Michigan and win all the swing states, then he might have a path to the White House.
Natan, how confident is the Clinton camp about a victory now? And how worried is the Trump team over the fact that almost every poll shows them losing?
Well, I think the Clinton campaign is pretty confident. They're not showing it. They're really stressing the fact that they need to get out the vote, and they're telling their supporters and the volunteers and donors that this is the time to make sure that nothing happens in the last moment. But basically, they look at the polls, they look at the polls that we see in the media and their internal polling that shows a large turnout, a strong ground operation game on behalf of the Clintons campaign in all the swing states, and the national polls that show that she is leading, and they feel pretty confident. Of course, Donald Trump is far from accepting this analysis. He really believes that there is this still support for his campaign that is not showing up in the polls, but will surprise everyone once ballots are counted tonight.
Nathan, is there a serious expectation in the United States that if Trump loses, he might indeed fail to concede the election as he's threatened before?
That is the big question. Donald Trump is setting up his election night operation not far from here at the Hilton Hotel, and he is expected to deliver a speech. Of course, no one is talking right now about concession speeches, only about victory speeches, but there is this serious concern based on what Donald Trump has said during the third presidential debate, that he may not concede. He may not deliver a concession speech. He may not call Hillary Clinton if she wins and offer his congratulations for her victory. And if that happens, it will be serious, not because it matters for the process, but because there are tens of millions of voters out there that are voting for Donald Trump. And they need to get a message by the end of this day. How do they move forward? Do they keep on fighting? Or do they accept the fact that the democratic process has run its course and they accept the results of these elections? And I think everyone will be looking at Donald Trump tonight, once the elections results are in, to see if he decides to fight on or to accept the verdict and convey this message to his voters.
Thank you, Nathan. Enjoy election night, and we'll see you tomorrow for the results.
Thank you.
Kalev, what can we expect to know and when over the next 24 hours?
Sure, Alon. During the course of this day, we'll be getting reports about voter turnout at the polls, as we already heard Natan said, and that is a pretty key indicator. Starting at about 1 a.m. our time this morning, the first states on the East Coast will be closing their their voting, and then we'll start getting exit polls on those states, and those include some key battleground states. Over the next few hours, we'll be hearing about more and more of these key states. At 6 a.m. tomorrow morning, California will close its voting. That's when the big networks will finally come out with their determination of who the winner is. And of course, it could go longer if it comes down to one state, as we had in 2000, where the vote is so close that the votes still have to be counted or recounted.
I mean, all the polls have been tracking the national vote share, but of course that's not the most important metric. The United States has an electoral college system, and famously in 2000 it flipped the result of the popular vote. Briefly, how does the electoral college system work?
Basically, the founding fathers wanted to create a system where even the smallest states can affect the outcome of the election. So basically, every state has its own mini election to vote a certain number of electors, and then those electors vote in what's called the electoral college. You have 538 votes in that, so you need 270. The key is that it's in almost every state, it's a winner-take-all election, no matter what the gap is. And that's why you get that circumstance, which has actually happened 4 times in American history, where the winner of the popular vote did not win the electoral college.
So if indeed we need to keep an eye on the electoral system, which are the states we need to watch to understand whose path to victory is still open?
Well, of course, Florida, but on the East Coast, Florida, North Carolina, and New Hampshire, if Trump doesn't win all 3 of those, his chances are very small. If he does win all 3, look out, start looking, not to mention some of the Midwest states like Wisconsin that could be up. Also a key state, Nevada, that could be the margin of victory, for example, for Hillary Clinton if she loses all those East Coast and Midwest battleground states.
The Trump-Clinton very dramatic, almost television-like face-off has been a huge distraction from the other races for the Senate and House of Representatives. What can we expect to see when the results come in for those?
Sure. Right now, polls show that the Republicans will most likely hold on to the House of Representatives, but polls
by a margin.
Their margin will shrink down, but they will still maintain control over it. Paul Ryan will still be the Speaker of the House, a hugely powerful position for Republicans to hold. But in the Senate, polls are showing a good chance that the Democrats will take the Senate back from the Republicans, and not by much, but they'll have a majority, and that's hugely important, especially for Supreme Court appointments. Remember, right now the Republican Senate is holding up the 9th justice pick that Barack Obama made. Getting that Senate, getting those Supreme Court appointments, that would be key for the Democrats.
Kalev, I'm sure the entire world will be on edge for the next 24 hours. Thank you.
Pleasure.
Back here at home, a new Knesset caucus pushing for freedom of Jewish worship on the Temple Mount has been launched in the Knesset. But could the call to change the status quo in the highly volatile site ignite a violent backlash? IBA's Aria O'Sullivan reports.
The struggle to change the status quo on the Temple Mount has just gone up a notch. In the past, it was the fringe pushing for the right for Jewish worship on the site, but now it's coming from the Knesset and being backed by ministers and lawmakers. They're not shying away from the topic and ignoring the Prime Minister's orders to refrain from discussing the Temple Mount in an attempt to avoid igniting Palestinian violence over fears Israel wants to take it over. Even Minister of Public Security Gilad Erdan admitted that the status quo discriminates against the Jewish people. Deputy Defense Minister Eli Ben-Dahan went further. He said that this is the time and place to call on the government of Israel to allow Jewish worship on the Temple Mount. The Temple Mount, known to Muslims as the noble sanctuary housing the Al-Aqsa Mosque and the Dome of the Rock Shrine, has been a flashpoint between Muslims and Jews. Last year, Prime Minister Netanyahu barred visits to the mountaintop by Knesset members, both Muslims and Jews. Now legislators and others are calling for this ban to be lifted. Even the police have said it was time to reconsider the ban. Minister Uri Ariel of the Jewish Home Party called loud and clear, open the gates of the Temple Mount. Likud MK Yehuda Glick, who survived an assassination attempt by a Palestinian opposing his Temple Mount activism, said the movement to return to the Temple Mount was growing and couldn't be stopped. One participant in the conference held in the Knesset even called for barring Muslims from the Temple Mount and extend Israeli sovereignty over the entire Promised Land and set up a true Jewish state. Arab legislator Ahmed Tibi dismissed the entire event as a stunt by pyromaniacs who want to ignite everything by changing the status quo. Netanyahu has an agreement with Jordan's King Abdallah to bar visits by lawmakers and ministers, but the pressure to change this is growing and growing. Aria O'Sullivan for IBA News.
Following last week's fracas at the Western Wall, the women of the Wall are now demanding the rabbi of the Wall install a Chanukiah in the women's section too, come Chanukah. This following a letter to the rabbi last year by the government's deputy legal advisor, who said that barring women from participation in official ceremonies constitutes prohibited discrimination. Meanwhile, following a visit at the Kotel this morning, the chairman of the Knesset Interior Committee, Dudi Amsalem, has called the Prime Minister to cancel the plan to establish a new egalitarian prayer plaza at the Western Wall. In a follow-up meeting of the committee, MKs from both the government and the coalition urged the government to implement the plan that it itself approved in January in a historic compromise with the non-Orthodox movements. Operating overnight in the West Bank town of Yatta near Hebron, security forces shut down a weapons manufacturing facility and arrested its Palestinian owner. Elsewhere in the town, border police forces confiscated homemade rifles, ammunition, 15 knives and inciting material. In Jenin, soldiers shut down another weapons manufacturing facility. Since the beginning of the year, security forces have confiscated 370 weapons and shut down 36 weapons manufacturing facilities in the West Bank. Overnight in East Jerusalem and surrounding areas, security forces arrested 9 Palestinians suspected of participating in firebomb attacks and clashing with security forces. Border police operated in the Shuafat and Al-Aida refugee camps, as well as the East Jerusalem neighborhoods of Isawiya and Ras al-Amud. During the operation, clashes erupted, with Palestinians throwing stones and rocks at troops. Channel 2 anchor Ilana Dayan astonished viewers last night when she read on live television a 6-minute-long statement from the Prime Minister attacking her integrity as a journalist. It was a response to the opening episode of the 23rd season of investigative show Uvda, which promised an explosive look at the Prime Minister's aquarium, the inner sanctum of his office. The show focused heavily on Sarah Netanyahu's alleged interference in government affairs and included allegations that Netanyahu twice met with the American president without reading his intelligence briefings because his wife kept him distracted on the plane. It also included the allegation that Netanyahu demanded personal loyalty in a telephone interview with the deputy head of Mossad, a candidate for the top job at the spy agency. But the real bombshell came when Ilana Dayan read verbatim the Prime Minister's 700-word statement on live TV, which the show received in lieu of answers to the 32 questions it posed. The response, which took 6 minutes to read, started, "It's interesting whether Ilana Dayan, who portrays herself as a knight of freedom of expression, will bring our response in full without censorship. The time has come to unmask Ilana Dayan," she continued, quoting the Prime Minister, "who has proven once again that she has not even a drop of professional integrity." Netanyahu accused Dayan of leading a concerted feeding frenzy on him, aimed at toppling the right-wing government. He called Dayan a member of the extreme left and a cover for political propaganda, who persecutes soldiers, recycles warped gossip and vicious lies, and even has a problem with the nation. The statement continued to say that the public is right to lose trust in the mainstream media for abandoning all limits in their propaganda war against the Prime Minister and the Likud government. The investigation, concluded the Prime Minister, demonstrates why the media industry requires reform. As that remarkable statement continued to send shockwaves today, drawing sharp criticism from journalists and politicians, Ilana Dayan told Army Radio that the Prime Minister is not her enemy and she is not his. Meanwhile, the Zionist Union is asking the Attorney General to investigate the findings in last night's show, and the new Likudniks faction responded by launching a party membership recruitment drive to protect freedom of speech. New legislation aimed at banning boycotters of Israel from entering the country has passed its first reading in the Knesset's Internal Affairs Committee. The proposal, which has coalition backing, would deny entry to individuals who call for a boycott against Israel or representatives of organizations that do the same, while allowing the Interior Minister to make exceptions. Members of the opposition charge the new legislation is likely to severely damage Israel's image abroad, causing more damage than good. Online video streaming service Netflix has purchased hit Israeli TV show Fauda from Yes. Unlike its recent decision to adapt Shtisel for American audiences, Fauda will be available in the original Hebrew and Arabic. Despite having been broadcast already on Israeli TV, Fauda will be marketed as an original Netflix production. Netflix has also purchased rights to the upcoming second season. Fauda, the brainchild of Lior Raz and Avi Sakharov, is based on an Israeli undercover special ops unit operating in the West Bank. The entire first season will be released for an international audience on Netflix on the 2nd of December. Today is the first ever Yom HaAliyah, Israel's new national day to celebrate mass Jewish immigration from around the world. In June, the Knesset established the new day with broad multi-partisan backing, fixing it on the 7th of Cheshvan to coincide with a Torah reading in which God commands Abraham to migrate to the land of Israel. The Education Ministry is running a week-long program on the complete story of Aliyah, teaching about the various waves of immigration and their unique characteristics. In just a short time, the Jewish Agency and Ministry of Aliyah will be hosting a special ceremony at the Jerusalem International Convention Center, featuring artistic performances celebrating immigration, set to be attended by the Prime Minister. And now for some light comic relief from the US election. Conservative commentator Scotty Nell Hughes caused bemusement yesterday when she criticised Jay-Z for a music video showing a crowd throwing Mazel Tov cocktails at the police. Take a look.
Also, you look at Jay-Z, and we talked about this that night, that he might be working on it, but one of his main videos starts off with a crowd throwing Mazel Tov cocktails at the police, and this very much anti-police message that the
Hughes, of course, meant to say Molotov cocktails. The Merriam-Webster Dictionary tweeted in response, "No, we have no idea what a Mazel Tov cocktail is," but Politico writer Julia Ioffe suggested it's what we drink at our monthly Illuminati meetings. Across Twitter, proposed recipes for Mazel Tov cocktails included pickle brine, herring garnish, schmaltz, Manischewitz wine, and copious tears from parents upset at your life choices. In finance, the shekel and stock exchange are both mixed today. And in weather, tomorrow should be partly cloudy with an additional rise in temperatures, becoming unseasonably hot, reaching heatwave conditions on the coast. Expect strong easterly winds in the northern and central mountains. And that's all for today. IBA English will be back tomorrow at our usual time of 4 o'clock with Laura Cornfield here in the studio, where we'll bring you all the latest coverage and analysis of the results of the US elections. Until then, it's a good evening and Yom Aliyah Sameach from Jerusalem.